Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered about the storyteller's edge? Today, we're going to go in and unleash the giant power of storytelling. It's time to buckle up. Don't step in dog pee unless you want good luck. Let's go. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants, 12 Journeys Coaching, and I'm here with Nicholas T. Smith, the other co-half of that, and the author of The Giant, the
I like that.
co-half.
I think that's an
your new
official
intro.
title now.
Yes,
Yeah,
the co-half.
I'm a co-half.
And the creator of The Giants and the Smalls. Home. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to, if you start your day off stepping in dog pee, I think that's a good sign. Today's guest,
Some of the best shows.
yeah, he did that. It's going to be the best show ever. I don't know. It can only go up from here, I think. So that's the good news. I'm so excited about today's show, but real quick, scrolling across the bottom is our my12journeys.com. It's the link to the website where we have all of our content. This is the place where we take thought leaders, community leaders, business organizations, any type of leader. If you're in the coaching industry and don't have a program, this is a fantastic place to come in, bring your clients, use our framework to help from a holistic approach to create a whole human, to help them see where they're at in their journey and start stepping through so that they can be empowered and grow and learn what giants know, because they're truly already giants. So my12journeys.com is the place to be.
I think that should be our pitch, is if you work with half humans, come get our whole human approach.
Partial humans. Right? Yeah, if you haven't stepped in dog pee today, come on over to our website. We'll help you get going and step in the right direction. But I'm excited for today's guest. We had to do a little bit of an early show, so thanks everybody for joining us. You get out of your normal patterning and you get to wake up a little early with the Giants today. So Nick, will you introduce our guest?
I would love to. Yeah. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants, everybody. Today we're honored to have Alan Cohen. He's a visionary in executive coaching, professional speaking, and storytelling. Alan's journey includes spearheading the Harry Potter series launch, highlighting his unique ability to create shared purpose and engage audiences worldwide. He's not just an author. His work, The Connection Challenge, addresses the crucial need for genuine connection in today's digital landscape. Alan's coaching spans across giants like L'Oreal, American Express, focusing on storytelling's power to enhance leadership and business relationships. Residing in Miami, Alan's creative pursuits, including painting and travel, enrich his professional expertise. So let's dive in with Alan Cohen, a figure reshaping how we perceive leadership and connection in the modern era. We're glad to have you here, Alan.
Good morning. Good morning. And sometimes leadership involves not being able to tell time, and
it does.
And going back to bed for a little bit because you think you have time before an interview, and then not watching your dog, your puppy, who is being potty trained, and stepping in his urine.
Some days go like that, right?
And leadership is just acknowledging the mishaps and committing to do better the next time. So
and just roll with it.
And just roll with it.
Yeah,
a little mess. My feet are a little damp, but the puppy is laughing at me, and life is good.
Puppies do that. They laugh.
They laugh. They laugh. He's already vomited this morning and peed inside. So
I think there's a life lesson in that, for all of us. Just pee a little, vomit a little, and get back to life.
For those of us old
Laugh
enough,
it up.
the Mary Tyler Moore Show, a little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down the pants. That was the Chuckles the Clown episode
That's
in 1975.
That's funny, man. Well, let's dive into your journey. We love to explore you as a human because we feel, your life is a testament to what it takes to create yourself, to imagine yourself, to live into that. I'd imagine that you haven't always done what you've done, that at some point you were something different, that you grew up in a culture, society, family, that you learned how to be a certain way. And that maybe there was an awakening to that and seeing that that wasn't quite your character that you wanted to be throughout your life. And maybe it was something you wanted to continue down, but I'd love for you to really share with us some background so we know where you got your start. What was life like growing up? Who did you think you were? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you ask my mother, I was a brat, and if
you and me both.
my mother, may she rest in peace, she was right about many things. She said two things. She said, "You're a brat," and she said, "You're too vain to let yourself go." And I think both of those things are actually, those are pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's all right.
Right? Sometimes parents with their little left-handed, what is it, little backhanded compliments,
Right.
they stick with you.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. I got the message. I was raised in a pretty liberal home on Staten Island, New York, and interestingly enough, I was also raised in an Orthodox Jewish family, but my parents politically, socially were pretty liberal, which is kind of cool. And in fact, so much like my dad encouraged me to pursue an acting career. When I told him I wanted to go to college, he was like, "Why do you want to do that? Why don't you go be an actor?" And much to my mother's horror, because she wanted me to make money, and so I did listen to those angels instead and pursued a more traditional path. Went to a liberal arts college and got a master's in business, and not in that, but there were a few years in between. But went into communications work and did that for better over 2 decades. And but I have 3 brothers and sisters, and pretty happy kid most of the time when I wasn't afraid. So I think externally I was did all the from the outside, people would have thought that I was just a pretty happy, well-adjusted kid, because I was very active and all sorts of activities. But I think I had anxiety and depression from a very early age. But I loved theater. I loved anything to do with the arts and writing and anything creative. And so I do tell kind of an origin story of having a backyard puppet show as a kid, probably 7 or 8 years old, and inviting all of the neighbors, many of whom my family hadn't even met yet, who didn't even know, and charging them all $1 to come to the show. And my parents came to the backyard a few minutes in to hear what all the noise was, and what did they see but their entrepreneur's son entertaining all the neighbors who had been just charged $1. But as I was enacting like family squabbles and very personal conversations, and so at a very early age, I knew that I had a knack for creativity and communication and connection and commerce, that $1 that you all paid, and courage, looking my parents' faces, and with their horror and amusement, and but that
presenting Days of Our Lives, the puppet show.
Exactly.
As a 7-year-old.
I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But those are pretty much the tenets of all
Yeah.
the work that I've done in public relations and as a speaking coach and executive coach, and kind of the 5 C's, right? Connection, communication, courage, and whatever those two other, creativity, connection, and those have served me well, and I think those have served my clients well too. That they so it's interesting, right? The cues, the clues, the early indicators of what will be the paths to one's success later on.
You don't see them until you look backward, right? Like Steve
Right.
Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do that looking backward. So you got to trust that they're going to connect.
That's
And I
right.
see that you grow up in an Orthodox Jewish community, and you mentioned the anxiety, right? Lisa Feldman Barrett talks about not measuring up to the ideals we think others have for us, and it creates anxiety as a research model. And how did you navigate that to where you really embraced, this storytelling facet of your life, because you started pretty early on with that?
Yeah. Well, I do, and I like that you referenced the Steve Jobs quote. That's I did have a lot of anxiety, and I don't think that, and I don't think I ever really felt safe to communicate that to my parents, and I think I did a pretty good job at pushing it down. And my parents had a lot of kids, so I don't know that they could ever really focus that much on the needs of any one of us. So I don't blame my parents for not seeing it. And also at a pretty early age, I also knew that I was different, and I was gay, and I knew that pretty early on in life, although I don't know that I necessarily knew what gay was. I just knew, I didn't have a name for it. I just knew that I like girls in the way that my other friends did. And so I walked around with that secret for a long time. I didn't come out to my parents until I was in my early 20s, which happens to also be at the height of the AIDS crisis, and where I lost 30 or more friends within the course of a very short amount of time. So fear of coming out, just all of those things really were big. Being in the closet all through college, a lot of secrecy and a lot of fear about being found out. It played a very big role in my life, and so I think storytelling. I don't think my storytelling was very authentic until later on in my life. I told a lot of stories, tall tales, if you were, like to get to cover my tracks, to get out of trouble. Sometimes to just be provocative and kind of shock people. Sometimes to get my older brother in trouble.
That's what I do. I'm a provocative dude.
Provocateur, right?
Love
I could myself cry like that. I was a drama major in college. I know I can make myself cry and get people in trouble. So but my own storytelling that had truth in it didn't happen until much later, when I decided to set myself free of the shackles of lies and deception. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's perfect. I think there's a really powerful tie-in here, because I think there was a study done recently where they measured energy outside of the body and different energetic fields. And you would think that love or fear would be some of the strongest emotions, but authenticity was 4,000 times stronger than love, right? As a measurement, which is huge, authenticity. And we feel it, if a person isn't aligned in their outer world with what's going on in the inner world, we see that, we experience it. We can't quite put words to it.
Yeah. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, a brilliant speaking coach, and we were actually lining him up to keynote at the storytelling conference that we're having here in Miami in a few weeks. And he said something that really resonated with me, which was how, I get a little tired of that expression, authenticity. It's kind of overused, and it makes, and I think people have made it now seem like it's kind of easy to be authentic, like,
Kind
hey,
of cliche, right?
authentic, right?
Yeah.
and it's actually really hard to the true authenticity. It requires a great deal of courage and to be willing to face rejection and all that can come with it. Because if I really show you who I am, will you still love me? Will you, or will you abandon me? Will you, and am I okay with that? And so it takes I think it's a practice, and I think that people have to feel pretty safe to show their authentic self. Now, I'm going to be completely authentic on this call, and part of it is because I'm somewhat sleep deprived, and and I slept in pee this morning already, and I didn't get to throw water on my face. So, like, this is me unfiltered, which is probably why it'll be a good interview.
Well, that's great, because like the authenticity, we love it. You stepped in pee this morning. You're talking about dog vomit, but it's so true. Like Brene Brown in her work talks about the power of authenticity, and people hear it and they have the concept of authenticity, but the being of authenticity is a different thing. And there's a lot of risk in it. I've had some times where I've shared really openly my life. My life isn't perfect at all. Like, a surprise, everybody.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe, right?
But people have reached out and said, dude, you're killing your career. You're killing, people connecting with you because you're being too open here. Don't do that. And some of that feels like their own fears are being projected on me.
That's right.
Right.
I remember once somebody saying, well, gosh, like if you put all that out there on social media, if you tell people like your political stance, or you come, oh my God, my dog is like going to town with his chew toy right now. It's making all this noise. If you tell people who you really are, you run the risk of losing business, all that. And I, for a while, did play that game. I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend to be, arch conservative, straight boy from, that didn't.
And you got it all figured out, right?
60 seconds later, that was
yeah, right. That blew out the window. But we will often get that message that we need to just tone it down, or that we're too much, and that we can't just be who we are. And so you've got to fight against that. I always say, though, like, if you think I overshare, you should know how much stuff I don't say.
Yeah. There's so much that you don't know right behind the scenes.
Yesterday I sent a message. I think it was on TikTok. They could write a paper. It was 15,000 word paper on AI and some dangers on what was going on with AI. I don't know. It's pretty intense paper, like for college. So the professor says you have two choices for your final exam. You can do a 15-second dance, or write this 15,000 word essay on the dangers of AI and, I don't know, in this particular industry. And one person, he said, hey, who's going to do the dance? One girl gets up and does this little interpretive dance. It wasn't even that good. And he says, okay, who's going to do the essay? And it pans around and every single kid's hand goes up.
Wow.
And it's that fear of being authentic. It's a fear of getting in front of people and showing them something that they might perceive as less than.
Yeah, well, I think because most of us also have had experience with what it feels like to have shame. And so we are constantly doing things to not have to experience that horrible moment of shame. And so if we're authentic, we're also risking feeling shame or being ashamed.
Rejection, right?
It's a horrible feeling. And I think that, shame is a big one, but that's something that I think that the more we become present to that, our shame, and the more we can begin to look at ways to overcome the fear of that. but it's
Yeah.
real.
So the storytelling, if we dive into that
Sure.
with authenticity, it's not something you can fake. Authentic isn't made up. And it is very cliche. People going out there and saying, I'm being authentic, and look at me, look how authentic I am. Well, are you really? Show us behind the scenes. What's it like in your life, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
entire community, we have 4,200 members in our tribe, and it started at the low of lows in my life. I'm sitting there talking about going through divorce and starting over and really navigating it, and that became foundational to the show, to that community, everything. And then there came a point where I think I got in my head about sharing that stuff, and growth stopped. Right? It's like our community started just kind of leveling out almost. And so it's because I wasn't showing up authentically in our community, right?
Yeah.
Not being raw.
Yeah.
And I think raw is scary. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a great it's a great segue. All right. And but we have to, if we want to grow community, if we want to have impact, if we want true connection, we as leaders have to be willing to step into that rawness, because it's only in that way do we create the space and the permission for others to do the same.
Yeah.
And that kind of like whitewashing of what we're going through, and it creates a separation that's very hard for people to bridge.
Yeah.
And so I always, like in my coaching, my clients know pretty much everything that's going on in my life, and not to the extent of oversharing, but I think it's important for them to know that they can share everything with me in the same way that I'll share everything with them. I'm not looking for coaching from them, obviously, but I think that it's important. So
when you hear the chime and you're supposed to turn the page every time it chimes, I'm like,
it's just my text apparently. Like, I don't know what's going on with my family drama right now. I have here we go. Be real, right? I have a 95-year-old father who's not particularly well, and 3 siblings, and there's this like text chain where it's just a constant barrage of like dad's potassium level, or what's going on with the egg today, or where did we leave his glasses, and I don't know how to turn the text off. So for all there who have elderly parents,
we get it.
It's life alert. That's what we're hearing is life alert.
Right. And well, it's interesting too. A lot of my clients are dealing with either they're in that sandwich generation. They've got kids, they're having issues, and then they've got
care of parents,
or pets or whatever. That's me. So so I share that stuff because I think I think there's this insanity where that like we think we're the only ones that are going through what we're going through, and because we don't talk about it, others don't talk about it, and that further creates the insanity. Like nobody's talking about this stuff, so everybody thinks they're crazy. But the minute you start talking about it, people are like, "Oh yeah, that's me too." And then I think that's where some of the healing happens. And so for me, like the past few years have been freaking awful, and dealing with chronic health issues and the loss of my mother, and some real financial mishaps, and relationship strain, and family strain over the loss of my mother, and just like a barrage of shit. And someone who really has lived a life that is been pretty charmed, and I still am very grateful. There's there's much to be appreciative for, and I've got a 95-year-old father. That's pretty incredible, right? But it doesn't. It's not a contest, right? How bad your life is. It's like it's your life, and it's not what you're used to, and it's still pain, and it's still discomfort, and so I for a lot of the time that I was dealing with what I was dealing over the past few years, I didn't really share. I shared episodically, loss of a mother, whatever, but not all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes in a lot of ways, because I was also protecting the other people that were involved in that story. But now I feel more empowered to share some of the learnings from that, and also have had some perspective to also be able to see my part in some of the breakdowns and how I went through it and how I might go through it differently if things reoccurred.
Yeah,
I'm getting to sort of like redo with my father to be a better son to him than I was to my mom toward the end. And but yeah, I have no idea where I just went with that. But
well, that was beautiful. I think Ryan, hold on to that.
Yeah, you're good. I got it.
I want to make sure you get it. I just hear there's so much power in this, because the raw, the hardness, the difficulty. You've done a TEDx talk. You've worked on the Harry Potter series, publicizing that. Not small things. People think, this guy's got to be killing it, got to be crushing it. You look on the outside, and the way we measure as a society is all of the accomplishments.
Right.
And you sit there and say, yeah, I did that. And I'm going through some real shit right now. My life is hard. There's some challenges, some real challenges. That's the human side of it. Yeah. You can go accomplish the biggest things in the world. You got books published, and spoken on stages, and it doesn't change the fact that life can get really difficult.
Right.
And we stop talking about that part. We start talking about all the successes, and that's what people want to hear about. But really what people want to hear about is, are you like me? Are you struggling like I am right now? Right.
I often will say to my speakers and people I'm training, we don't want to hear from the sage on the stage. We want to hear from the person who has walked in your shoes, and maybe in some areas is a few steps ahead. But maybe in some areas we're walking side by side. I just may have a different perspective that can be helpful to you. And so I don't dismiss the successes that I've had in my life, but I'll also say that a lot of those successes are in the past. And so to the extent that I would often dismiss them as unimportant. I remember when I wrote my first book, my second book, I actually left out the whole thing about leading the Harry Potter publicity team. And my editor was like, "There's something missing here," and I was struggling with how to, like, what would be to write in the introduction. And he was like, "Well, you're like the story guy. Why are you leaving out the story about how you were the first person in the United States to work on the Harry Potter publicity?" And I was like, "Well, because that was 20 years ago, and like I didn't write the books, and what does that have to do with connection and blah blah blah." Yeah, and we figured it out, but those things are in the past. And for me, you and I talked about this on our prep call, but thinking about legacy and thinking about how the best is yet to come. Like, I still feel like I've got a lot of juice left in this part, and so for me, it's about impact and legacy. And like, my impact and legacy isn't about what I did 20 years ago on the Harry Potter series. It's what I'm going to do today. It's what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's how I'm going to leave this world in a better place, and how I'm going to help my clients create a better world. It's very cool at this point in my life where I no longer think about being the star of the show. It's about how can I help my client. I've had that success.
Yeah.
and I help my clients now experience some of that for themselves, and then I'll have the pride in. I'm no longer competing with my clients.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, you're on your way to make 5 million this year. That's awesome. Like, I never made it like anything close to that, but I am excited for you, and I can't wait to see you cash that check. So
that's right there. That's an interesting point too. You know, people feel like imposters when it comes to their coaching and consulting. And I would imagine, you know, some coaches are doing pretty good, but their players are often doing better than they are.
That's right.
You know, when it comes to that, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But yeah, and I've heard people say like, "Oh, I would never hire a business coach who wasn't making X amount." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Like that's your choice." But a lot of times, we've made choices in our life to run our businesses differently and to have a different kind of life. So we didn't necessarily take the actions that were required in order to have that kind of business or scale in that way. I know what to do. It's just that was never what I wanted to do, and it was never required of me. So, but I know what I can offer my clients, and in terms of intuition, and in terms of, we say, being able to see the spinach in their teeth, I can see it, and I can call it out, and I know. And I know how to write a really good speech, and I know how to extract really good stories from people. That's kind of my superpower. So, I haven't made it rich as a speaker myself, but if you want that for yourself, I can help you with that. I've done it before. So
I kind of wonder if a shirt that said "You've got spinach in your teeth" would have people checking. You know, even though I know, right?
Probably. I'm pretty right here, right now.
Right? Yeah.
We used to do that on purpose, is just put some in there and be like, "Do I have something in my teeth?" Big old spinach.
Oh, but we all do sometimes, right? Like, you eat something that has some pepper on it or whatever, and you like go the whole day, and then you go to the bathroom and you wash your head, you look up in the mirror and you smile at yourself, or you're just like,
and you're talking,
how long have you had that in there?
Confidence, right? Like,
yeah, you've been just like, dude, hi. And then
there's a process. Kim Scott has a system called radical candor, and she it teaches people about empathy, and she used how to get feedback in a radically candid way, and she pulls through this spinach in your teeth metaphor. So like, radical candor is like, you know, you have spinach in your teeth, and I'm going to say, hey, like, you have spinach in your teeth. Maybe you want to go to the bathroom and just, you know, I would pull you aside if I could. I would say, you have spinach in your teeth. You should go to the bathroom, and, you know, maybe you want to just like get rid of that. But then there's this thing called, then there's ruinous empathy, which is where, like, I'm not going to tell you. And because I'm like embarrassed for you. And so I don't want to tell you, and I don't want to embarrass you. So, yeah, then I just let you like just go there with the spinach in the teeth. And then there's like this other thing where, like, I'm going to tell you I have spinach in your teeth, but I'm going to tell you in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just mean.
Everybody, they have spinach in their teeth.
Aisle 15.
Oh my gosh. You know what's refreshing though is like hearing the things that you've been through, and I know we've just barely scratched the surface, you know, like inside of your world in just a short period of time. We've been able to see you just real, just living life like normal people. You stepped in dog pee, your dog threw up, you know, the phone's beeping, you got family things going on, you know, it's just what everybody else has going on too.
Right. And I am here. Yeah. I am here with you right now.
Right.
With that going on, I can still be here with you.
And I'm more grateful that you showed up in this way than showing up in a different way where it was all facade. This is a green screen, right? Like, I've got a green screen. I got a cool room behind me. It's pretty neat looking behind me too, but we put the green screen on so that we can have some branding and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't have pants on. So
Nick does that. Nick's more real than I am, And thanks for
yeah,
telling us that,
yeah.
Nick. That's
Hey,
awkward, but
gotta be raw.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but we all have or have had spinach in our teeth.
We,
We've all been there,
and we will, and we
and
all
we
will.
will.
That's right.
And what's really refreshing to me is that you show up, Alan, and you've accomplished some amazing things. But what you're doing is, as you're building your story, or as your story is happening, because there's all kinds of current flow to it. It's
Right.
like life is happening, and some of it is out of your control. There's some shit going on, and you're like, I didn't want this necessarily, but it just
Right.
happens because your dog has its own beingness, and your
Right.
family does, and the way they are, and it all blends together to create what's going on in your world. But it's super refreshing because you're taking people's story, and you're not living from your past, but you're using the past experience to bring it all into the present, and stepping forward into what you want to create, which is your giant's journey. That's what we talk about. That's what Nick wrote in the book. It's learning that life is messy. It might not be where you want to be, but there's opportunity to take your story where you've been from and step into the unknown moving forward. Help
Yeah.
other people realize that, look, you're still a giant. You've been through some shit. You feel small. You feel like life is like just bombarding you. Guess what? It did to Alan. It has to Nick. It has to Ryan. We all have spinach in our teeth
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point.
I like that. I like that. I just sort of getting back to the storytelling. So my no. So my dad is 95, as I said, and he's been a writer for 70 years. He still writes. God bless him, and he's a great storyteller. Now, granted, he tells the same story like 100 times a day, but we can all relate to that. But they're good stories still. They're still. He'll say, so Alan, have I told you that story before? And I'll say
Yeah.
yes, and then he will say how many times. And I'll say like 10 today, and he'll say not enough.
Today,
And
10
Not
he
enough.
today.
will
I thought it was like 10 over your lifetime. No, 10 today.
today. And but there is a real preciousness about sharing stories and families, and always with the hope that maybe you'll hear a new one, maybe now. But because our stories are our history, and
Yeah. Wow.
and so it's like I don't have a recording of my mother's voice, and that makes me really sad. And I wish sometimes I could hear my mom telling.
Mm.
Now I wish I could hear my mom repeating one of her stories, and so all I have is just kind of what plays in my head, and so it's important that we learn how to tell stories. And I saw Hamilton the other night. There's a great line: "Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" And like maybe it won't matter to you after you die what the story is that's said or told about you and your life, but to me it kind of matters. I want to be remembered for some cool stuff, and to help shape the narrative, and live a life that's worth remembering, with stories that people want to tell. And I want that for my clients too. I want them to. It's so often when I'll talk to my clients, and they can't see the gold that they're sitting on in terms of their own stories, and the impact that they can have by sharing their stories in an honest and true way. And I'm the person that can help them see the threads, and the cues and the clues that were there through their origin story, and how they want to use that to move themselves into the next chapter of their lives, and how they can have impact through that.
I was just pulling up. There's some facts about Emily Dickinson, right? She wrote over 900 poems. Only 10 ever came to light, and they found those 100 years after she died. She was reclusive, but not antisocial. But her stories didn't come out until after, right?
Right.
And the thought here is that sometimes, you know, we hope that our story would have impact. So we want to tell the stories that we think will have impact. But what really has impact are the stories that are real. You know, you talk about the origin story. I mean, that's who we think we are. That's everything that's ever happened that we can recount or
Right.
account for. And that's who we think we are. And my question around that would be is, are we telling ourselves into keeping that same existence, or are we speaking ourselves in a way that we can actually shift who we are? Can we change ourselves?
I think that's a great question. I think too our memories of these experiences and these stories, we know that they're not wholly accurate. All right. It's like if you ask people who were in that experience with you what their take was of that, what happened, they're going to tell you a completely different their perspective, or we conflate experiences, and really kind of at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And it's but don't you think it's funny when somebody tells a story? It's like, oh, I was 7 years old, and and I still can smell the rust on the back. It's like,
yeah,
you remember.
I have two siblings. One of them has the scar and the other has the experience. It happened to both of them. Like one of them says, no, that was me, but the other one has the scar.
Right.
Prove it. I tell Nick the truth all the time. So
yeah,
you really have a
my view.
Harry Potter, the lightning bolt. It's where was I going with that? The
telling who we are, right? The differences in perception.
Right. And like, I also don't think that we can get, like, we don't know what impact, we don't know which story we told is going to impact what people in what way. I've had students of mine, I used to teach in a training institute, and I've had students who I taught 20 years ago come up to me and it's like, when you said that thing about your cousin Steve and what he went through, it's like, that changed my life. And I'm like, who's cousin Steve? What did I? I don't have a cousin Steve. What are you?
Hey, Nick talks about that all the time, though. It's like your story. If you have a story that was hard and it was, it's keeping you held back, and you're constantly going back to the story and replaying and living it, and just being stuck small. Change your story. Go find a cousin Steve, right? Like, just make something else up and start believing that. Like, I lived a charmed life. I'm blessed. I did this. You can. Who cares?
Well, the facts of the story may not change. It's like, I was 5. I was wearing a plaid shirt. I was on a bus going to school. But how you're interpreting those things, what you're making it mean, that changes as we evolve. And that's very cool. So be okay to redefine, reinterpret, whatever the facts were.
Yeah.
We are meaning making machines, said like a true landmark disciple.
That's awesome.
I heard that.
I understand you. Yeah.
I am complete.
I get you. I am complete in this conversation.
Yeah. The ontological approach to life, isn't it? The beauty of story, though. I mean, you speak about your story, growing up gay and Jewish, right, in New York. The challenge of that and hiding from that, in a way, in the closet, we say, and coming out to your family, and then really opening that up and being authentic. And there are probably some challenges in really just expressing what's going on there. Edith Eger, who was a concentration camp survivor, said that expression is the opposite of depression, right? And so many of us don't want to express because we're afraid of what other people might think. They won't accept us. And then we become depressed because we're now not living up to our own ideals, right? Can you speak to that a little bit? The importance of
Oh,
that expression? I know
well,
you have.
well, the I mean, living a lie is causes depression for sure, and I I spent a lot of time trying to pass as something that I wasn't. And then what happens is you know that you're living a lie and you're presenting in a way that isn't who you truly are, but people like you or seem to like you for that person that artificial person that you're
Yeah.
putting forward. So then you're just like, well, okay, I better just keep presenting that persona because I'm afraid that if I stop presenting that persona, people are no longer to like me. So that becomes your persona, and that's kind of depressing because you go back to your dorm or wherever, and you're like, well, they don't like me. They just like
Or
this
they don't even
costume.
know you,
They
right?
don't
They don't
know me.
really know who you really are.
Right. That's right. I mean, years later, when I came out to those friends from college, they were like, "Oh, please."
You're the only one that thought you knew, like that you were hiding it.
All those Bette Midler albums, like you thought we didn't know, and I'm like, well, why the hell did you say anything? It's like, well, because that was your story to tell. It wasn't ours to.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny.
so
Yeah.
it's
You
hard.
were the last one to know,
I
right?
was right, right,
Yeah.
right. But I even see that. So I don't live in New York anymore. I live in a red state, and I live in a place with lots of very conservative people who would just as soon not would prefer not to have me and my kind here. But I'm not going back. I'm not. That's not my path. But I'm still. When you are gay, when you are other, there's always this process of coming out. It doesn't stop. I'm 62 years old. It's no different. I'm still scanning the environment to see if it's safe, and I'll still go to weddings and see, is it okay for me to dance with my husband or hold his hand, or not that we really hold hands, so that's kind of funny. But I still, if I wanted to,
but just the thought, right?
right. Yeah, not into the public display, but it's so
socially that matters so much to us that we trade our authentic self for social acceptance.
That's right.
And we scan that environment because we don't feel safe. Even in close relationships, we can feel unsafe with who we are.
Right.
But the true connection comes from being authentically you. Like that's what
That's
brought
right.
us together in the first place, right?
Yeah. And back to the storytelling too. It's like I always say, your story might not be for everyone, but to one person, it may be the thing that they hear that can change their life or make their life better. And so when people hire me to help them with their speeches, to get on the TED Talk stage, whatever it is, it's like, don't whitewash your experience because you're afraid that you're going to offend someone or that somebody isn't going to like it. Think about that one person whose life you're going to change. Think about that one person who needs to hear about your journey as an anorexic or as an abused wife or that rape or that child trafficking story or being a Cuban immigrant and being made fun of. And it's like, what is that story that taught you resilience or taught you what was possible or taught you that you can survive and maybe even thrive? But don't edit out those moments in your life because you're afraid that people are
don't curate it, right?
Don't curate it.
Yeah.
People are going to make up their minds. It's like don't twist yourself into a pretzel to try to be this artificial, this thing that everybody will like because that's just impossible. And that's authentic.
There's somebody there ready to pounce on your exposure, right?
Mhm.
If you're putting on a show and a story and then somebody finds out, they're like, yes, I knew it. They weren't being authentic. I'm going to tell the whole world about how inauthentic they were. But when you're authentic, it's like, what do you got to share? Like, I've been the same way all the way through all of this. Like,
Great. And then you don't have to try to keep track of your lies. It's
right.
nice to wake up in the morning and bring your whole self and your honest self everywhere you go. And it's it's freedom. There's freedom and truth. It's
Everywhere you are, there you are.
everywhere you are. There you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So as we come toward the end of this, a quick interview here is, if there was a question that you wish somebody would ask you, Alan, and you and I, before we get there, you and I talked about an aging population, the baby boomers, who are going to go on and live 40, 50 more years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to hit on that real quick, and then I'd love to go to the question idea, because we're getting to a point that there's a ton of talent aging.
Yeah.
That don't know what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
And so much wisdom just sitting there.
Sure. Well, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
So I was experiencing a great deal of physical pain probably about a year ago with a chronic condition that we had yet to really find a cure for. A nerve condition that can be quite painful at times, and I remember my spouse and I were getting ready to go on a European tour to celebrate his retirement and my kind of slowing down.
Yeah.
And I was in so much pain, and I went into the parking lot of Dick's Sporting Goods store on a hot summer day, and was laying in the back of our car, doubled over in pain. And I kind of made a pact with God, and I'm not really a God person. Right? I have like my higher power, but in this moment, God seemed like a good person to have a conversation with. And I said, if I get better from this thing, if I recover from this thing, or if I somehow can manage the pain of this thing, I am getting back to work full time with a renewed sense of purpose, because I've got work to do, and there are a lot of people out there who need my help as a business coach, to tell their stories, and fortunately, when I got back from Europe, I was in a lot of pain actually through this trip in Europe, which kind of sucked, being in the most beautiful, being in the Dolomites, like with a this horrible bellyache. When I came back, I had a treatment that started to work, and since then I've got the energy of a 30-year-old. I seem to just be creating, and more than ever, and I'm happy and I'm purposeful. And this idea of retiring seems insane, because if you like what you do and it doesn't keep you from doing other things, it doesn't impact on other aspects of your life, and you have freedom, why would you want to stop? So I don't put an expiration date on working. I'll keep on. I'll be my 95-year-old father, and I'll keep on working. And it's not for the money, although money is nice. It's because I think that our health, if we have our health, I think some of my health issues also were exacerbated by my slowing down. I think I just had too much time on my hands, and I think it was making me sicker to not feel like I was making a contribution. And now I feel like I am, and I'm feeling healthy and vital, and I got more stories to write. I've got more.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for others as well that are getting to that point where retirement at 65, I'm looking at people who are 65. I'm like, you were like my parents were at 35, 45, right? You got another 40, 50 years. Don't stop creating, right?
Right. And you see a lot of depression in people who retire. You see a lot of illness in people who retire.
Yes.
I see a lot of my friends in their 60s who've gone into retirement and come out of retirement. So I think this whole notion of retirement needs to be redefined, re-explored, re-examined. It's and also truthfully for many people financially, it's not even feasible to retire in your 60s anymore.
Right.
Those of us who are taking care of elderly parents that like didn't plan for their retirements, like for their old age, but we have some commitments too. So
Right. So let's go to that question. What question would you like to be asked? And then we'll wrap up the show here.
didn't I already answer?
The retirement. Yeah, well, we're good then. No more questions. I'll back off, dude.
Oh wow! Oh, I don't know. I don't know. How do people get in touch with you? No, you were going to ask that question anyway.
Yeah, how do people get in touch with you? That's a great question.
Well, they can go to my website at alansamuelcohen.com, and then all my programs and all that cool stuff is right up there. Doing real focus on my business right now is speaker events, story immersion weekends, and group programs to help people who want to be better storytellers and speakers, and just on how people who want to learn how to use story in their marketing, sales, and speaking, because stories sell, facts tell. For all the BNI people, we've heard that a million.
we got all the bases covered.
We got all of them. And givers
up there.
And givers in.
Right.
I
Alan
don't
Samuel
know
Cohen.
other stories there because I think I've told you everything there is to know.
Yeah.
Oh, except that I'm a recovering alcoholic, but that's for another time.
Now we're there. Now we did it.
Have me back.
We'll do that. We'll have you back on. I'd love to do that. I would love to do that. Because this is, I know we only touched the iceberg here. You've got so much in you, so much wisdom that you could share around this. And for many people, and it's a reminder to me to get back to authenticity, truthfully, with my story, the origin story of the Giants and the Smalls and the tribe and everything that we're doing, it all came from hardship.
Yeah.
It didn't come because my life was easy. It came from challenges, and I still face those today.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I haven't shared where I'm at. It's been challenging. Life has been challenging.
Yeah.
And so it's a reminder to get back to that. And I appreciate it. I love it. I love you. I appreciate you, Alan. Thank you. And is there anything else to share at the moment around this?
Nothing that I can think of. This has been a great interview. It's so funny how the day started. And here we are.
Here we are. From dog pee to
mention the team to alcoholism to
cousin Steve.
Yeah, cousin Steve, who doesn't exist.
Steve. I have a cousin Steve, but he's married to my cousin, so it's version Steve.
Ryan, do you have final thoughts there?
I do real quick. Alan, I want to tell you too, just, you talked about living in a red state, and I live in a red state, and I'm probably more of a liberal conservative, we're going to call it. I want you to know that there's a lot of us out there that don't view you as different, because what you're doing and where you're at is your story, and we have similar things that are just as different. And I want you to know that I'm your brother.
Thank you,
and
man.
that I love you and I appreciate you. And I would say that people probably have more in common than less in common in the world.
Thank you.
We can set those things. Just look at them as we're all people. We're all trying to do our best and survive and do, live a life. And I'm so proud, of you and your life. I know you don't need my validation, but I want you to know, like, from my vantage point, I'm so grateful and proud of you for doing your work and stepping out and doing those things that then make it seem like, oh my gosh, okay, Alan's done these things. Well, okay, I feel like I can do some of that too.
Yeah.
And if I can do some of those things and people can hear my story, then they're empowered, and that they can then elevate their life and do what makes them happy. And I love that, man. I'm grateful that you've had spinach in your teeth, and that you've been able to, you know, seriously, it's like, it's funny the way that we talked about it, but
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that for your story and showing up today.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to tell you I love you,
Thank
brother.
you, man.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate that very much, and it does matter, and it's good to hear, and I love that. Can I actually just add one more thing? So I would love to hear from your listeners directly. So my email address is alan@alansamuelcohen.com. So if people were inspired by anything that they heard today or want more information about some of the, I'm doing some online speaker showcases so people can hear other people's stories. That's a way also for people to reach me directly.
Does that look right there?
Yeah, because I'd love to hear. I'd also love to hear questions from people, or maybe going through some stuff. Would love to be able to offer some coaching or counsel. So
I love that, man. Thank you for being on with us. Yeah, we have a great audience. They're very engaged. This will go out on our channels, and so we'll have more comments come in after. We'll make sure you have a copy of this for your audience if you want to share that. And just thank you for being you and giving me, for me today, the reminder to just get back to authenticity and get back to that origin story and start oversharing again. I think it's time for me to start oversharing again.
If you don't have somebody say TMI to you today, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, right. I think I'm going to go for some TMI today.
TMI.
Yeah.
You guys are great. Thank you for waking me up.
You're welcome. For those that are watching, thanks for being on with us. As we always say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing what you need to be doing. Keep stepping. We'll have more great shows like this. If you feel like this impacted you and you want to share it with somebody, send it to them and give them a message of why they should listen to this show, why it matters to them. Go subscribe at the channel. If you haven't done that, you get notifications when we go live every single dang time, right? Ryan Morris.
Yes,
And we love you. We appreciate you. Go make it a giant day. And we will see you in the next video. Take care.
Love you too.